So if we could start with each one of you doing a really quick round of introducing a few words about the company and then about the project. Starting with Alicia, please.
My name's Alicia. I have a company called Optimism Film. We have projects in the UK and in Australia, sort of two separate companies but the same name, essentially. This is one of our sort of late-stage development UK projects called Step 13, which is pretty indicative of our slate in general. Like, we kind of work on everything from feature docs to family animations. Basically, they have to be films that are optimistic, that kind of, give the audience something to hope for, essentially, in whatever kind of, weird, twisted, writer-director kind of capacity that is. But anyway, Step 13 is the one that we got the single project funding for. It's a comedy about, it's an oddball comedy about three recovering alcoholics looking for Step 13. They have no idea what to do with their lives.
We're looking for projects with international potential, so that carries well.
Yeah, well, this has nothing to do with the Australian company at all. This is a UK project. It's a Danish co-production, which I think is what helped us get through this round, because we have obviously a language other than English, sort of with our co-producer, and we had a really, really strong Danish co-producer, or we have a stronger Danish co-producer on board for this one. So yeah, it's kind of in the casting phase at the moment. So that's kind of where we're at with Step 13. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Ed, tell us about your slate.
Hi, I'm Ed Dallal. I work for Spring Films. Spring is a documentary production company. We're run by Andre Singer and Richard Melman. So kind of a long track record, probably going back something like 40 years. The company itself has been around since 2006. And we do a wide range of projects, always factual. Everything from the sort of, the big cinematic projects, the Werner Herzog kind of stuff we do. And then right the way down, we did, a couple of years ago, we did a series of web documentaries for Yahoo. And everything in between, which includes BBC, Channel 4, and we do a lot of international co-productions, a lot of non-broadcaster finance projects. So we try and kind of spread ourselves across, I suppose, the factual arena. And really the criteria for us is simply that it's got to be a project we would want to see, something we would watch, something we would enjoy making. For the slate application, we had three projects, which were Volcano, which was a film by Werner Herzog, and it's now called Into the Inferno, and it's currently in production. The Woman Who Joined the Taliban, which is a remarkable story about, a Canadian woman, in fact, who was drawn to the sort of dark side of jihad and the Taliban and went out to the tribal regions in Pakistan and was eventually kidnapped and killed by the Taliban, but not before she sent back, I think, 8 or 10 hours of her own footage. And it really is kind of a chilling story of her descent into danger and then captivity and finally her being killed. And that one will broadcast, I think, in Canada this weekend, actually. And finally, Francis Bacon, the man who inspired a generation. That was a project with, we had some development support from the BBC, and currently we are still developing that project, so we're hoping it will kick off soon. But yeah, still working on that one.
Sounds great, thank you. And Tim.
All right, I'm Tim Goodchild. I'm the producer from 1973 Films, and this is the project that we got the development money for. It's a stop frame animation called Hetty Make Believe, which we are planning to make in Manchester with a company called McKinnon & Saunders. It's at the moment, when we applied, we just got an offer letter from CBeebies for this series, and we've just applied, reapplied actually, for the next set of money which you can get for TV programming. And we just found out that we've got that money as well, which is fantastic. In order to apply for that, we had to get 50% of our funding in place. And the development money that we got helped us to get letters of commitment from 10 broadcasters, including places like Australia and things like that. So it's been absolutely fantastic support that we've got. This is the development grant that we applied for. It was the second time we applied. The first time we applied, we didn't get it. We reapplied with some help from media and people. And so we've been very, very lucky. And at the moment, we are presently talking to lots of different people, like you do, for one of these shows. It take a long, long time to fund them. And you have to talk to lots and lots of different kinds of people, including investment bankers and people like that. But it's going very well, and so that's Hetty Make-Believe.
Lovely, thank you. Well, it's animation, so it's a longer cycle, if you like.
Yes.
But good luck and fingers crossed for development. You turned to us for this funding. You had certain expectations of what this money is going to help you with. And I think it would be a nice question again to go through the panel to... we're all used to developing on a shoestring and without any money on the horizon whatsoever. So when the real cash appears, how does it make a difference? What did this grant really enable you to do that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Starting maybe with Slate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say the funding from media was kind of indispensable. It allowed us to develop the treatment, work on scripts, budgets, and also to create teasers. So, often we do create teasers or trailers, and sometimes we borrow footage from here and there. But in this case, we were able to go out and film. And I think it's kind of a very useful proof of concept when you're talking to commissioners, broadcasters, or whoever, just to say, look, here's something, here's what it's going to look like, here's the story. And also I think there's a factor of time, because, whenever you're developing a project, you're always kind of time limited, because you have to move on if it's not going to work. And I think this allows you to spend a bit more time and to develop it really a little bit further than you would possibly normally, and hopefully that gives the projects, they stand a better chance. And
doesn't it sound like exactly what we want to achieve there, Virve, the purpose of development?
Absolutely. From our point of view, I think there's a certain amount of overproduction in Europe at the moment, and hopefully our money will give the opportunity to a producer at a certain moment decide that no, this does not work. And, well, it's a subsidy, so there's no harm done in the way that you don't need to return the money if the work was done. And then at the end, the answer was that no, we don't go into production. Because I think that too many producers are living out of the producer's face. And produce without thinking that much as if there is an audience somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And Larisha, what difference did the grant make too?
Well, first up, we just went, woo! It was a really nice feeling. So it really helped us with this particular film. It's a first-time feature filmmaker, and our strategy has always been to kind of surround Tess. She's a really unique writer-director with her own sort of, very, very unique voice, but our strategy has always been to kind of surround her with experience and weight of experience in order to kind of get this film through, because it's not a genre, it's not kind of an easy sell, particularly for a first-timer. And so that's what the money's really allowed us to do. Like, we've kind of been able to fast-track the late-stage development, start working with a really, really great casting director. So our script editor was able to stay on board. We've just spent a week in Denmark kind of meeting HODs and things like that, and sort of working on stuff with our co-producer, which basically what that does is when we come to financing, and you look at the package, and we've been able to sort of make it a much surer thing by being able to say we're working with this casting director. Here's the DOP here, all that kind of stuff, which kind of really makes the first-time director a surefire bet for other funding agencies, which will be first in. And basically a casting. It really helped a lot with casting too. Like we've been able to kind of. We're still looking for our lead, but we've got sort of our 4 or 5 supporting cast really locked down, and we've got like some really, really great people on board, which we wouldn't have been able to get without the casting director we had, etc., etc. So yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, because we're looking at development from the producer's point of view. So it's not, well, it is important. It's primarily to get something written and to pay the writers, right? That's mainly what makes the difference, so that writers don't have to write for nothing. But from the producer's point of view, it's also all the other aspects of development that are eligible costs and can be...
And not only eligible, they are obligatory. So we are not supporting script writing. We are supporting development, which includes the artistic development of the project, but also the financial development of the project. And when you come to a final report, when you want we have paid 70% of the money for the single projects, and now this year 50% for the slates up front, and then the rest on the final report. And there the beneficiaries need to show that both sides of the project has advanced. So artistic and financial development.
Exactly. And just to complete the round for the animation project, what made the difference?
Well, I think that what we found is that having the time to work on the characters and the scripts and the visuals has really helped us to sell the show to the broadcasters and the other people that we need to speak to. It's expensive business, and also going to markets and things like, and talking to people and networking and things like that. We wouldn't have been able to get as far as we have without this support. I don't think. I think we would have got there. It would have taken a very long time. And I think if you're a small company and you're trying to do something like this, I mean, we didn't realise when we started what the costs were and everything. So it's been brilliant, really.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask a question that you all want to ask, I'm sure. I originally had it for Virve, but I think it would be even better if the producers answer this. According to our rules, you know that there's a window when you can apply for development. So it starts with the time when it's early on that you have something written down in terms of artistic material that the experts can evaluate, right? It can be a treatment, it can be a script, something on paper that people will be able to make a judgment on. That's the earliest. The latest is when you are still 8 months of development work is ahead of you. Right? That's the window. But what is that golden time to approach media for that grant so that it's not too soon, not too late? And I would really like to drill into this with your real projects, with your slate, whether all the projects at the same advanced level or not, whether you had talent attached. If you could tell us your opinion on that golden moment, because you obviously went through. You did it right. So where were you in your development when you were approaching Brussels for money?
Absolutely. I think probably all the projects were similar stages. I mean, there was a selection process. So in general, on our overall slate, I think in the company, I mean, there will be sort of 20 odd projects there. So obviously there was a selection to see which projects would best fit the media criteria. Where we were with them, I think on all of them, if I'm not mistaken, we had main talent attached in terms of directors. We had treatments written, obviously, for all of them. We had, I believe, development funding on all of them, or at different levels.
From third parties. So you were bringing the matching funds with you into the application.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, by the way, I have to say that is a difficult thing for UK companies to do because, I mean, I think in this case we were lucky. 2 of them had CBC Canadian money attached. One had a little bit of development money from the BBC. But in general, I think it's fair to say there aren't so many funds to support development in the UK. So it's in previous applications, I think that was always a tough one for us to find that match funding, because I mean obviously you can put some of your company funding into it, but it looks better if it's third party, I believe. So yeah, I mean in this case they all had significant interest, I think, from various broadcasters and different places. In fact, I think if anything we were playing it down slightly on Volcano, because I think there were that, you know, being a Werner Herzog production, I think that was you know, almost universally there was interest for it. So they were, I suppose then it's fair to say they were quite far developed, those projects in that sense, in terms of our general overall slate for the company. And yeah, I guess hopefully they fit the criteria. So that was you know, when they were ready, I think.
Yeah, and how did it look from your perspective, Virve? Is that what we're looking for with slate applications, that they're all far down the line?
How much time did you put into the writing the application?
It came down, because we did 3. We returned, so we were we were 3.5 points away the first time, then 2 points away the second time, something like that. So on the third time...
Third attempt.
Third attempt, we were already kind of in the groove, I suppose. We knew the process a little bit better, so we weren't kind of looking up all the rules all the time. We kind of knew the sort of thing you were looking for, I think, by then. So probably on that third application, it was a good 2 weeks, I think, in total. I mean, from start to finish, I'm not sure if it was, you know, different people did different things as well. But yeah, overall, I think it's about 2 to 3 weeks.
So if any of you are planning to apply for the slate funding, where the deadline will be very early February, probably the 4th, it's better to start before Christmas.
I mean, it also gives you a chance to get the projects, I think, to an extent, to get them in shape. I mean, to make sure you've got those letters of commitment or letters of interest or development finance from other places. I mean, sometimes you can kind of bring that forward, hopefully, to meet the deadlines.
Do you want to know why we selected your slate?
I would absolutely love to.
Please.
What made the difference from our point of view? Well, first of all, as you said, there's a very long track record as a producer and also as a co-producer. So, of course, we look at the international performance of the company, and they're both majority and minority is good. You had all the projects were very strong, and each line was written specifically about that particular project. So all the strategies were individual, so there was no copy-pastes from one project to another. It's very, very important in the slates. You had very clear financing plans and several partners already in place, which, of course, for the feasibility of a slate funding, when we are talking about big amounts of money, it's important. Also, the distribution strategies were very factual and done project by project. And you had very, very strong vision on the international sales. You are trying to look into new funding methods.
Have to.
Yes, exactly. But, there is a but. So, for the 4th time, if you come, you have to show your vision as a producer about the marketing. You can't leave it on the distributors to do it. You need to show your vision also. So it's not enough to say that my sales agent will do it for me, or BBC International will do it for me. Some of the projects did not have yet the team completed, but it did not harm this time that the core teams were strong enough to make us believe that you will attach the talent you need.
Okay, so you see the kind of two-way perspective on the successful slate.
It's actually very interesting on the marketing side, because I think that's something, again, potentially UK producers struggle with, because we don't usually deal with the marketing side. I mean, it's usually done by the distributor who picks up the film. So, I mean, to an extent, we're sort of second-guessing will be done. I mean, we did speak to our distributors in this case, and we did ask them, okay, how will you take this forward?
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't think it's unique to the UK, but
No.
this program is forcing you to talk to distributor, because for this program you always have to think about the audience, because what we're doing is we're helping develop the films that we will then distribute across borders.
Yeah.
So it's for a reason that usually normally the producer is more disconnected from that part, but the rules
It's
are
all about education and skills.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, golden moment for Alicia. Where
we-
were you with your?
Well, we applied unsuccessfully once before we were successful as well. At the first time we applied, we had the BFI on board who kind of funded a development draft, and that was it. The rest was speculative, including we eventually changed countries who we were co-producing with. So the first time around we had BFI, and I think a very early sort of second draft, which wasn't kind of enough. The second time around, we had much more kind of tangible elements, and I think that the whole project had a much greater sense of momentum. We had switched from Spain to Denmark as a co-producing country. We had our Danish co-producer on board. At that time, like, he'd just kind of got a lot of publicity for a certain film he was doing. Like, it kind of felt that, you know, he was really the right partner for us. With this film, we had a little bit of money from the West Danish Film Fund, who'd kind of supported us to do some location recce's when we were thinking about moving to Denmark, and we had the BFI again as well. So we kind of had a much stronger elements in place, I think, and that was kind of the golden moment there. And the script had, you know, another couple of drafts sort of had gone through by that point, and also it was a definite. I think it was a locked-in co-production in a sense. Like, we can't co-produce with anyone other than Denmark for, you know, like, we're shooting in location there and things like that, and it's set in Denmark, some of the story. So I feel like all of those kind of elements combined made it sort of, yeah, it just made it more of a possibility, really. I think, yeah, that the film had much more, you know, greater legs at that point. And so I think, yeah. I don't know what.
Now let's see how it looked from Virve's point of view.
Yes. It does not happen very often that we see applications with third draft of a script.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a strong point. There you can already see the development work done, and the character development was especially impressive for the experts. And especially in the combination, it is a first-time director for the feature. Well, she has done short films and has had critical acclaim.
Yes.
So it's not unknown. And the experts did see a potential for this one too, that we might hear, or the critics might be good for this one. Especially the specific needs of the project were very well addressed in the application. The team is international. It's a natural co-production rather than financial co-production. And especially what is also important if your director does not have yet long track record is the writer's note. So it is always helpful if you add into your application a writer's note and also the producer's note. And not just the, let's say, 100% artistic material, what we can consider, but the motivations behind why this film needs to be done.
Oh, that was a strong point in this one, yeah? Okay. And Tim, second attempt, yes?
Second attempt. First time we applied, we didn't actually have a letter, so we got our letter from the BBC, which is quite difficult to get. And we had a new distributor.
And artistically, has the project progressed from one application to another?
We had a better script. We had more visuals. We had done more work on the Bible, and we'd been to the market again before we applied. So we'd had other people that we were talking to all over literally all over the world. We'd have meetings with and things like that. So there was sort of, it had moved on quite a lot in the 6 months or so, and it's moved on a lot since then. It's quite difficult going through it now because so much has happened in the last year, actually.
Yeah.
So that's where we were.
So when it came to assessment, Virve, what earned this application its funding?
First of all, it is a very original project, strong visual approach, which, especially in the animation, we do see a lot of similar projects in general, so this certainly stand out from the lot. The target audience is very well defined, and the project fits perfectly the target audience. Distribution strategy. We felt that you had written the distribution strategy and not the distributor. Were they mistaken?
No, we did a bit of both because up until that point I've been talking to all the markets.
Yeah, exactly that. We felt your investment in there, and of course, as it was already resubmission, the plans had become very accurate in explaining what to do and when, and also the financing strategy was already very well established. And it's a solid team with a very diverse know-how from different fields than animation, which also can bring to the project. But of course, then you need to explain how somebody who has been working in a completely different field, what can he bring or she bring into this one with the track record, which is not 100% similar. So this was, there was very little script material at that point, which is important for series. Also that often I say that you need to have the episode outline for a series before you apply.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Can I just say, I guess one thing for me, this is the first project that I've kind of started on at concept stage and kind of followed through to this stage. Like I've done a couple of features in between, but I've come onto them at a much later kind of stage. And what's been really useful about the media stuff is even the first unsuccessful application is making me think through all those things, and actually sort of start working on them from that early stage rather than just script, and then going, right, what's next? Like it actually, I think doing those applications kind of did shape the project and where we would have took it with or without the money, because I was forced to sit down and kind of think through everything and justify everything and go, right, actually, what am I going to do at this point? That sort of thing. So I thought that was really helpful. Yeah, maybe I am an optimist, but I was like, okay, it's not too bad we didn't get it. At least I've kind of, I've got a plan. Even if I'm not going to stick to that, at least I know what I'm not going to do. Yeah.
And that's not an accident. Again, that's the purpose of this funding. That it really.
I think most of the materials that you would produce for an application, you can reuse for many other things. So it's not lost 100% even if you don't get the money.
Exactly, and I think it's important to realise from the panel here is that. It is a very competitive scheme and it doesn't always work out the first time. So when you persevere, you learn through the process. Exactly. It's hardly ever that your subsequent application would be worse than the first one. That would be quite... That has happened, but...
Last year I had a Spanish applicant who called up after the results. This time it was positive. He said, this was the 7th time. The first time I went through. Not with the same project, but... He had been rejected with 6 other projects before.